Hello, welcome into Boise State and the community. I'm your host, Scott Lopez, and my guest tonight is Dr. Tasha Souza. Doctor, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So you have two titles here at the university. The first one is the Associate Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning, and you're also a communication professor. Could you tell us a little bit about what those jobs entail?
Sure. So my primary role is the Associate Director for the Center for Teaching and Learning, and in that role I help faculty help their students learn more. So I do observations, consultations, workshops, other kinds of programs and events in order to help faculty learn more about how to get their students engaged, brain-based learning, other strategies that they might want to try in order to have more students have success in their classes. I'm also a professor of communication, and I've been that for many years, but here with this larger role, I'm only kind of on the side in that I teach one class for communication a year.
Okay. And that one class, that is the intercultural communication?
That's one class that I teach. I teach others, but that's one class that I'm getting to teach every spring for a while.
All right. And what does intercultural communication teach them about?
So the students learn about the complexities of communication and the ways in which culture affects it. They learn a lot about different relations in terms of power and privilege, the ways in which people are socialized. They learn, hopefully, to communicate more effectively across difference. So it's not just about the content, but really about the skills that they're going to develop so that they are more effective as communicators with people who may think, communicate, have different worldviews from themselves.
All right. And from what I've heard from other students, you teach that class a lot differently than most classes. How is that?
Well, it's not necessarily most differently from most classes that I teach, but maybe from the ways in which other people teach, but I'd like to not think that's the case. The way in which I teach many of my courses, and in particular this one, is that I rely on students to help each other learn, and so there's a lot of student-student interaction, a lot of discussion, a lot of activities, simulations, and reflection. And I think it's important for students to be able to experience things and reflect on that experience in order to learn. And I also think it's important for them to practice intercultural communication in this particular class so that they are learning how to talk about things that they might otherwise be uncomfortable, but become more skilled in that process.
Very nice. And so one of the projects in that class is the semester-long service learning project. What's that all about?
That's my favorite part of the course, and that is where all the students in my class are partnered with another person in the community, and they're largely students, and they are partners as intercultural dialogue partners. And so this past time I taught the course, and it's going to happen again this upcoming spring, my students were partnered with College of Western Idaho, or CWI students, who were mostly non-native speakers, largely refugee students, as well as students from Boise State who are multilingual, largely international students. And so the partnerships were largely one-to-one, but sometimes there'd be 2-to-1. And they would, after thinking about positionality and learning about privilege and thinking about the power dynamics that might happen in the partnership, they would then meet their partner after selecting them. And it would be the reciprocity in that is that the intercultural dialogue partner that they're matched with needs oftentimes more practice in communicating in English, or wants to learn more about the culture here, or what it's like to be a Boise State student. And then my students get the opportunity to practice communicating with someone who is different from themselves, learning how to understand non-native speakers, how to talk about complex things in ways that other people can understand. And ideally, over the course of the semester, after they meet a number of times, they're required to have 5 interactions. They are also developing a relationship in that it's not just an assignment where they're building skills and learning from each other, but they're actually gaining appreciation for one another as peers and eventually some of them friends.
That sounds really cool. So they're what do you call them? The international dialogue partners?
Intercultural dialogue partners.
Dialogue. Where are they from? What kind of countries are they from?
So this last time I taught the course, they are from Somalia, Cambodia, Colombia, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Kenya, did I say that already? Nepal, Russia, Afghanistan, Burma.
Oh, wow.
So a variety of different countries. The group that was the largest tended to be from the Middle East, just because of the international student population that we have here.
Sure.
So for the course that I partnered with here, but it really was a range. There were fewer students from or partners from Europe, I think. But otherwise, a lot of
mostly Middle Eastern.
Well, kind of all over, but
Oh.
yeah.
So a range of people, range of experiences. I'm sure that happens. I mean, every student is going to have their own unique experience in that class. Any specific memories that stand out that you'd like to tell us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing I want to mention related to the range of experiences is that because some of my students are partnered with international students, there's a social, in thinking about intersectionality of identity, there's a social class difference than the students who are partnered with students who are refugees. And so when we engage in conversations and dialogue in the class, we can learn from one another about how social class plays a role in intercultural transitions and in their understanding of that person from Burma, right? Okay, this person from Burma is a refugee, but if they were an international student, it'd be a very different experience. The kinds of experiences that my students had that were especially memorable is, they would share stories about how they would go out to dinner or go out to an event, and they would do things that weren't at all required as a part of the course, but that they wanted to do as they were getting to know each other and they were sharing experiences. So I had one student who was attending, they had plans to attend a Ramadan function together. They'd given each other invitations to special events.
Oh, that is quite an experience.
An engagement party, sharing favorite restaurants. I remember I had 2 of my female students who were invited over to their intercultural dialogue partner, IDP's, apartment for dinner to have a traditional Saudi Arabian meal. And so he was male, they were female. He was Muslim, they were not.
That's a big issue.
And they totally buddied up and had a great time. And so I thought, they crossed a lot of boundaries in ways that I think helped to diminish stereotypes.
Sure, yeah.
So it was cool.
All right, I'll put you on the spot here. What is your favorite part of the service learning project?
Hearing and reading the stories. So my students put in their interview answers after every interview. So throughout the semester, I get to read about how my students are learning from their intercultural dialogue partners about the course content, but oftentimes they share these really moving, poignant stories from their experiences, but also from the part of the IDP. So I learn from the students in all these countries, or from all these countries, based on my students capturing their experiences in the interview entries, as well as the class discussion. So really it's the stories that I get to hear from my students and their intercultural dialogue partners.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and he has taken your class, and he told me it should be required for every student at Boise State. Do you agree with him?
I'm mixed because on the one hand, I think, yes, it's an important thing. I think students develop skills that are necessary for them to be successful in life. They develop empathy. They I think it helps to break down barriers, which I think barriers have kind of been built up a lot recently between people who are different from one another. So on the one hand, yes, I think it'd be great. On the other hand, I worry that if it's mandatory and people are forced to take this course, that it would be a lot more difficult to teach, and that I might get resistance from students who aren't ready yet to be partnered with someone who maybe they're uncomfortable partnering with.
All right. So if what I understand about your job with the Teaching and Learning Center, you teach teachers, right? That's your job. You travel around to different universities and teach teachers how to teach. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, largely my role is to be here helping professors and all instructors with supporting student learning. But I also go to other campuses, and it's largely related to the work that I do on difficult dialogues. So in my intercultural communication class, we have a lot of difficult dialogues. Students are uncomfortable talking about race and privilege and systemic oppression. So I work with other faculty on how to facilitate difficult dialogue so that students can be become more comfortable engaging in those discussions and develop those skills also in their courses, whether they be in political science or sociology or psychology.
We're in a bit of a unique situation here in a red state on a college campus that's very diverse. Do you think that your class really helps our students kind of acclimate into that a little bit better?
I do. I think I learned from the students in teaching here last semester or last spring that they were actually quite uncomfortable with the assignment, even though I had asked them in writing and in person anonymously and not, how they felt about the service learning experience and partnering up with an intercultural dialogue partner. But they had said that they were quite uncomfortable afterwards, but they moved beyond that discomfort and they saw the value in the experience. And I think the reason why many students were uncomfortable is because they had grown up in places where there wasn't a lot of difference. Sure. And so what they had known about people from the continent of Africa was, a very stereotyped view, right? They had heard a single story of what that meant. And so I think that that's one example of the ways in which they were able to expand their view, move beyond stereotypes, and really get to know other people as humans. Yeah. and appreciate the differences, but see how many similarities there really are amongst people. Yeah. So.
You got to step outside of your comfort zone if you want to expand your worldview at all.
Yeah, and I always tell students on the first day of class, you're going to feel a variety of emotions in my class, and sometimes you're going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay.
Not all emotions are good ones. Is there anything else you'd like to say about what you do here at Boise State?
I feel really grateful that I get this opportunity to have students engage in this experience and to really learn from students who are both in my class and their intercultural dialogue partners. And I also really appreciate the courage that students have displayed in really trying to learn and grow as a result of their intercultural dialogue experience. So
nice.
That's about it.
So you said you've been a communication professor for quite some time. Here at Boise State?
No, so I've only been here for a year and a half. I was at Humboldt State University for 16 years. And that actually was a much more diverse student population than here. But so I actually had to change some things. I did the same kind of thing at that institution, but needed to shift my class a little bit here because of the different context. What
brought you to Boise?
I wanted new professional opportunities, and it seemed like a really good place to raise my family as well. So
it is.
It's a nice combination.
It's an amazing place to raise a family. That's my favorite part about it. So how long do you plan on being here?
As long as my children are in school and I continue to find it a great place, to live.
Right. Well, hopefully they'll grow up to be Boise State Broncos then.
Well, one of them wants to be.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.